right. So we are now live. People should be coming in, I believe. Yep, there we go. And John, if you could also record on your side, just in case, that would be helpful.
Shows it as already recording.
Okay, we can get started. Just like to thank everybody for joining us again for the Resilience Action Forum. We've had some really great conversations. I do want to point out some folks did ask following the last meeting that we ensure that we have a representative from the mayor's office here if the mayor is unable to participate. And we did tell you in that one he would not be able to join today. So we do have Jeremy Schwartz here, as well as a number of other members of the staff. I would like to highlight to everybody that we do have Commissioner Russell, who is joining us today. And he's asked if he could make some opening comments to this forum. He hasn't been a participant in this in the past couple meetings, but he has been very, very involved with our resilience program and all of the efforts that we've been making in the city. So I would like to start, as people are coming in, by turning the floor over to Commissioner Russell to start the day. So thank you, Commissioner.
Thank you, Colonel. And I guess after this meeting, you'll be going from director back to colonel status. And I want to start by thanking you for your service to the city. I certainly could not have passed the legislation that the city has passed on greenhouse gas and benchmarking, holding polluters accountable in the Bay, and trying to make the city as resilient as possible without your help and your department. So I really want to thank you and wish you the best. And that sends us on a search on how to make sure that this not only city is resilient, but that this department is resilient as well. And so I want to give you my commitment, and to those listening, that as budget season approaches, we're gonna have a really hard talk with my fellow commissioners, with the administration, with the mayor, that resilience is prioritized. That if the city of Miami is one of the most vulnerable, that it becomes and should be one of the greatest thought leaders and action leaders on the topic. And we can't do that. We can't do that unless the tools are here to be successful. And so I want to make sure that the department has what it needs so that we can pass the legislation, spending, and actions that we need. But again, your year here has been very fruitful, and the city is better for it, and we're on a good path. So we're going to try to honor your work by continuing and taking the torch and baton and going even further and much further. So thank you, Alan. I just wanted to say that.
Thank you very much. And I do see that we have Mayor Suarez is joining us, although the name underneath him says Nick Pasquale. But Mayor, thank you very much for joining today.
Thanks for having me, Alan. I think there we go. It got fixed. You want me to? I didn't want to interrupt Commissioner Russell. I know he was speaking, so
I'm done. You're good, Mayor. You got the floor.
Alan, have you talked about your decision?
Commissioner Russell just introduced the topic, but yes, I think everybody knows that I will be leaving the city of Miami.
Okay. Well, look, I first want to start by thanking you and thanking your predecessor, but certainly thanking you for your time as our CRO. The CRO position is an incredibly important position in a city that wants to very seriously deal with the threats that are facing our existence, from sewer to septic transfer, or from septic to sewer transfer, to making sure that our bay is not being polluted by our development and by a variety of other factors that are constantly conspiring to pollute our bay. And special thanks to the Vice Chair for his phenomenal work on that issue. We're always trying to find better ways to prevent pollution, from coming into our bay, to the magnificent community groups that are helping us clean and keep our city clean, that we have to be so thankful for. To obviously sea level rise, and our ability to combat and deal with water as a multi-pronged phenomenon, whether it be through king tide, whether it be through stronger than usual rainfalls, or through hurricanes, which seem to increase in number, intensity, and duration, and just understanding how we as a city can lead on these issues, not just nationally but globally, and how it's an issue that is felt maybe most intimately by the next generation, the one that comes after mine, which has been extremely vocal, extremely vociferous, and understanding and wanting to make sure that the world that they inherit as they become adults is one that they can enjoy, and understanding too. And I would say one of the things that I talk about a lot is that we have to change the dialogue in terms of the environment is the economy, is one of the things that we like to say. Not the environment is antithetical to the economy, right? There's just sometimes a partisan thought that, to be environmental or to respect the environment, you have to do things that are destructive to the economy. We don't believe that in our city. We think that our environment, and you can see as exemplified by the surfboard behind Commissioner Russell's room there, it's part of our quality of life, but it's also part of our economy. Him in particular has built a business enjoying the environment. And I want to be able to make sure that my children, as they get older, can enjoy the beautiful reefs that we have in our bay, see the beautiful fish that I've seen growing up, and that it can be clean and enjoyable for their recreation. So, we have a tremendous task ahead of us. I ask the entire community to please help us identify the right person, to follow in Alan and Jane's footsteps, and so we can make the right decision to move forward. So thank you so much for this. We're reevaluating, the frequency of these meetings as well. We don't want to just have meetings for the sake of having meetings, but we if you continue to find them helpful and useful, unfortunately, I can't make all of them. I wish I could. Sometimes I can, and sometimes I can't for varying degrees of time. But if you think they're helpful, we'll keep them, irrespective of whether I can be on them or not. If you think that we could do them quarterly, that gives me a better chance to be able to make them for a significant amount of time. But I thank you again for listening, and I thank you for being such active participants in one of the most important, if not the most important issue in our lifeline.
Oh, thank you very much, Mayor, and thank you to everybody who is being here today. That's the best part of this job, is the public involvement and seeing things move forward, and it all happens by all of us working together. I would like to remind everybody the way we do these forums. If you have questions, you can bring them up through two means. Either raise your hand, as I see Carolyn did already, and we can call on you. We also have the chat box, and you can type in a question in the chat box, and then we will try to answer it in between questions. So either way works. And Alissa, as always, will be the moderator and keep things flowing for us. So I would say, why don't we get right into the question and answers? And Carolyn had her hand up first, so why don't we start with her?
Well, thank you. Thank you so much. First of all, Alan, thank you for being so respectful of us. I know we were pretty tough on you sometimes. We ask hard questions, we demand a lot, but you have been a pleasure, and it's a sad thing, I think, for us to be losing you. Mayor Suarez, I can't thank you enough for those words. I do think you're earnest in wanting to lead on climate. Commissioner Russell, you're my commissioner, so I am so grateful you're at the table. I live in the city of Miami, and I just kind of want you all to know that while I really believe your hearts are pure and your intent is good, many of us on this call today, and many of us who could not make the call, do not see you walking the talk. And by starting with merging the departments of Public Works and Resilience, which is on paper is a great idea, but you and I know in Public Works, the urgent is the enemy of the good, and you have to work on what is urgent. So we're going to ask you to really rethink how you are going to be a climate leader in a state that desperately needs them, without seriously funding and increasing funding for the scope of work that the city of Miami has to do to keep not just infrastructure from being more vulnerable than it already is, but the people as well. We have a huge crisis. So very, very concerned that what you say doesn't match what you do with respect to budgeting in particular. And no, it cannot be done with the same number of people that you have there now. And it cannot be done properly with merging departments. So begging you to walk the talk and make funding and executing climate resilience a priority. And let's start mapping, not the problems, we've got a ton load of those. Let's start mapping the solutions. What have we done? What's still pending? When can we target it? Let's get people excited that we're putting time and money and thought into moving the needle on climate resilience, not just infrastructure, but people as well. So I'll just be quiet there and ask you to believe us when we say we know you care, but somebody has to cut the budget pie, and it's you. And you've got to stop slicing up the climate budget. Thank you.
Can I just address that quickly?
Yeah, go ahead.
I think there's two things there, Ms. Lewis, that are at play, because I'd like to maybe delve into it just a little bit more. One of them is overall funding. In other words, right, like, but then there's a combination of the departments, right? I think what, and I don't want to put words in your mouth, certainly, but I think maybe what we would like to see is an overall increase in funding. In other words, because I think having the resiliency director have more assets, having more operational assets, to go from something that is theoretical and is vision oriented to something that can execute, I think is a good thing. Now, I think the point you're trying to articulate is that, having said that, that doesn't mean that we should take that as we're growing the budget per se, right? Like, just because we're combining two budgets doesn't necessarily mean we're growing the budget, or that we're prioritizing this from a resource perspective at the level that we should be. And I think I hope that we can understand each other in that realm, because I think I don't necessarily disagree with you, by the way. I think we have to take a strong, hard look this year at our budget and see, is there a way for us to continue to add resources? But I think operationally, I'm not sure that it's a bad thing for a CRO to oversee public works. They may even oversee other departments, right? In terms of us building a resiliency platform. And to your other point on the deliverables and getting people excited, I totally agree with you. Let me tell you two things. One, I've been mayor now for 4 years, and two, we have great employees that are here on our Zoom. Everybody here, I promise you, wants to go faster than what we go. We all do. I can tell you, everybody does. And we're all impatient. And it's a good impatience, because it's an impatience for the right reasons and the right objectives. I would love to already have the website up that has our air quality measure, our water quality measures, that talks about our flooding capacities and things of that nature. And we're building it and we're working on it together. And you're right to push us, because that's the reason why we do this, right? If you're not going to push us, there's no accountability. So I just want to thank you for your perspective.
Go ahead, Commissioner.
Thank you, and thank you, Mayor. I echo your sentiment, and Carolyn's right. I mean, for a city of our size and of our vulnerability, and for the vision we say that we have, and I do believe, as she says, it's sincere, we've got to put our money where our mouth is. We are not, we don't have the top department in terms of manpower in this state. Cities much smaller than us have larger resilience departments, standalone departments. We're not even top 5 in the country for comparable cities to our size. So there's no way we can claim to lead. And this department has, really muscled it out to get good legislation done. But imagine how effective we could be in catching up with the resilience goals that we have, had they the manpower that they need. You all will remember, and obviously you were all there advocating, not under this manager, but under the previous manager when the departments were originally merged. And I did fight that because I do believe resilience is a standalone, not a standalone topic, it's an umbrella topic. And it shouldn't just fall under plumbing. It shouldn't just oversee plumbing. It should oversee everything from the human side of resilience to emissions, to the economy, et cetera. And so you really want a CRO to have the freedom to flow between and above departments to advise upon all of the budgets. I did trust this city manager when he named Alan, when he named Colonel Dodd into the position. And it has worked out. I have to say the stars aligned on this, but the moment I heard about Alan's decision to move on, I called the city manager and said, this is now the time to bifurcate once again, because the chance of us finding somebody who is a specialist in public works and also has all the qualities necessary to bring the resilience priorities across the city's departments is going to be very rare. And so I asked him if he was prepared to bifurcate that and create standalone public works department and standalone resilience. And he is open to it. There's no commitment yet from the administration side, and the proof will be in the pudding. But I think the will and the interest is there. And I know that this mayor and I both want to fund this department, to its full potential. We can't cry poor at this point when we passed a $400 million general obligation bond called Miami Forever, all about resilience. We cannot cry poor when we're receiving $140 million from the federal government and American Rescue Plan funds and hopeful infrastructure money on the way. We need to be prepared to deploy those funds in resilient projects and make sure that every one of our departments and everything they do are keeping resilience in mind and efficiency in mind. So I'm with you, and I think this budget period will be our grading period, and you all will advocate, I'm sure, and you will see whether we actually put our money where our mouth is or not. And of course, the mayor and I know the politics of the city as well. It's not easy just for him or I to snap our fingers and get our way. We need a majority of this commission to agree. We need an administration that's willing, and it can all work out. So we've got our work cut out for us, but thank you for pushing.
All right, our next is Zawala. You should be able to speak now.
Hi, everyone. Thank you, Alan. I just want to thank you so much for your service. You've been a great ally and a wonderful person to work with. So it's very heartbreaking you're heading on to something else. But I just wanted to thank you and Mayor Suarez and Commissioner Russell. It's great to see you on the call. And I will say, Mayor Suarez, totally understand your busy schedule, and I would just want to advocate for continuing to have these meetings monthly. I feel like, I feel like we get a lot out of interfacing with Alan and the staff monthly, and if that means the expectation is you to come quarterly or every other month, like just enumerating that, I think will be important. But I wouldn't want to get rid of these meetings or lessen their frequency. But that's just me personally. I wanted to actually ask a question about the American Rescue Plan Act, but just a couple things from the conversation prior. Commissioner Russell, it's great to hear you're advocating for the bifurcation of a standalone resilience department. And for everyone, I think considering the placement of that department would be really important. I remember when the Office of Resilience was established, it was placed under the mayor's office, and we were all very impressed that and thought it was so cool that the resilience officer would have a direct ear to the mayor. So it could be something to consider again. But anyways, that's just my 2 cents on that as well. But in regards to the American Rescue Plan Act, I couldn't find, Mayor, if you put out if you all have decided how you're spending the $137 million, and if that's been published, but if not, or even if so, we definitely have several recommendations and how that can be spent to bolster the work, to achieve climate action and resilience in the city. So yeah, I'm just wondering where does that stand in that process?
So the budget, and I believe the spending will be discussed and probably voted on if or delayed in September. What I would say, we have $200 million of resiliency funds, of which, a large portion of them have been unspent to this point. So I would certainly not hold back if I were you in giving ideas on spending, because whether it comes from our money, which is, designated for a variety of things, or whether it comes from resiliency money, which is designated for resiliency, there's significant amount of resources. So I think, I don't know what the idea is, right? Not having seen it, but I certainly would tell you not to hold back and send us whatever ideas you have, because we are in the process of planning how we spend these dollars. And it's always good to get feedback. That's why we do these meetings, to get feedback and ideas. The more concrete, the better. Like I said, there's a significant amount of resources.
Absolutely. Wonderful. Well, I have a full list. I don't want to take up a bunch of time, but I have the items and what the buckets are and all of that.
Perfect.
So I'll definitely send that your way. If you can, I don't know exactly which email is best, but it would be great if maybe, I don't know.
To all of our emails, I would say send it to Zeri, because
Okay.
he's the
So
assistant
Zeri.
city manager, but I would
Okay.
copy the vice chair. I would copy me.
Okay.
I think you can copy Alissa and Jose as well, at a very minimum.
Okay. Wonderful. And then,
Simone, real quick,
go
before you
ahead.
continue, Zeri had raised his hand that he wanted to contribute something, so I wanted to, before the thought escapes him, give Zeri the opportunity to speak.
Yeah, thank you very much. Good afternoon, everyone. This is Zeri hekwaba from the manager's office. Thank you, Mr. Mayor and the Vice Chair, for your recommendation. I'm just happy to inform the audience that the manager already moved forward with the concept of demerging the consolidation of public works with CRO's office. The public notice that we're putting out for the recruitment is already reflective of the fact that the CRO will be an independent office and is going to be reporting directly to the city manager, just like it was when we set it up several years ago. For folks who may be aware, I was part of that leadership that recruited Jane Gilbert. And Jane and I have been having conversation in the past few days now. In fact, we just got off the phone just a few minutes before this call. We will be strategizing on intergovernmental cooperation and strategy between the county and the city in moving forward. And also we'll be incorporating the old concept of the Greater Miami and the beaches, which is Miami-Dade County, City of Miami, and City of Miami Beach, on how we can have a much more global and regionalized concept of resiliency. We don't want to be looking at silos anymore. We want to make sure that all three cooperating intergovernmental entities are in agreement with all concepts and programs under the leadership of Mayor Suarez. He's been very, very, very good in channeling us and directing us in the right direction. And we'll continue to move forward with those ideas and concepts and programs. Alan is just a stone throw away in Fort Lauderdale. He's been a great partner, strategic partner in moving forward. So the concept we've tried to experiment in the past couple of years was geared towards operationalizing resiliency. That we will not lose focus on. We will continue to strive to operationalize all concepts and programs to make sure that they are rootly planted in the city's fabric. Having said that, I give you my pledge that as we recruit, we'll probably have an open forum. Jane Gilbert had offered to participate in the recruitment exercise, which I would gladly would also take her up on that. But keep in mind that the effort is for the greater good of the community. There is no political undertone. Everyone is in sync. The mayor's initiatives will continue to be taken very strongly as we move forward. And I will ask for your cooperation and collaboration as well. And we'll try to see if we can have different aspects of these calls, not just Q&A. We probably will introduce programs to be dissected and discussed and reviewed in these calls before we move forward, so that we can have a better public input. Thank you.
Sarah, you're breaking news. That's big news.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Yeah, thanks, Jerry. Just one last thing, and then my question and answer barrage is done. But just one more comment. So we've been organizing and like working with the Office of Resilience and Sustainability since the beginning, and find that we come out every year around budget season or maybe the mid-year budget review to ensure that the departments stay intact, whatever that means, and that they grow as well. So one thing we'd really love to see, I feel like this is like a come to Jesus moment with this conversation, but is more of like a multi-year commitment to increasing staffing or keeping increased staff. I know our budgets, we plan them annually, but I know that like from the advocacy side and for the community, it would be great to see more of that consistency, which I know can sometimes be hard to achieve in the city.
I think the other thing to know on the budget side is that, you know, we have a budget. It's a million, you know, I think the last one was $1.1 billion. And, you know, we just actually finalized union contracts with our general employees. We're in the process of finalizing union contracts with our solid waste employees, and we have looming union contract talks with our police department, police union, and next year with our fire union. And I think it may be a good idea too, at some point, for us to go over our budget with you, right? To get a sense, because we have to sometimes demystify some of this for the general public. And I think, you know, even for our employees, you know, we gave our employees, our general employees, we gave them in essence, a 5-year anniversary, which they get the first 8 years of employment every single year. They get a 5% increase. And then it's every other year beyond that. And we gave them 3% for the first year, which was last year. And then for the second year, I believe they got, I want to say 2% pensionable. And then the last year is 1% pensionable, 1% non-pensionable, so 2% increase. But that's somewhere in the vicinity of an 8 to 7% increase a year, depending on whether you're in an anniversary year. And we grew, because of the pandemic, 4%. So we are giving our employees who are struggling, right, and who are not making a lot of money in the general scheme in a city where there was an article today that rents went up by 17%. Right, so the rents are up by 17%. Real wage growth in the city as an employee, which is significant, is 7%, right, or 8%, and we grew by 4%. That's not good math in terms of the revenue that's coming into the city, which is a percentage of our growth, versus the revenue that we're giving to our employees and them catching up with the general population. I think those are important statistics to know, because at the end of the day, then you come to the decision of, hey, would you like to increase the budget of resiliency? There's nobody that wouldn't want to do that. But we have a finite amount of resources. So I think it's important for us to have those conversations as well, so that we can be realistic about what our ability to do that is. I would love to take a look at increasing the budget this year. We still are in a pandemic. And I think maybe, I know we have some monies programmed through ARA, which is one time, right, or over a 2-year period. And then, we have the Miami Forever bond, which is essentially, not a lot of it has been spent. Now, I don't think we can use a lot of that for employees. Most of that has to be for capital projects. But I think that's important as well.
Okay, I'm gonna pull up one or two of the questions from the Q&A. The first one is from Albert Slatt in regarding to the city making commercial and multifamily buildings at risk of flooding safer. His recommendation is requiring installing removable barriers. So maybe we can talk a bit about what the city is doing and potential plans for making sure commercial and multifamily buildings are safe from flood risk.
You know, the first time, let me just chime in and then I'll let staff chime in. First time I ever saw these barriers, I believe was in the Publix in Mary Brickell Village, if I'm not mistaken. And they're very effective. I've thought about buying them for my own house, which is very close to the water in the Grove. And I think, I'd love to explore that and look into that, because certainly from a risk premium perspective, right, in terms of flood mitigation, it's certainly something that's worth looking at, because it might be less expensive, frankly, to install that than to pay huge premiums like we're paying every day.
Maybe Alan or Chris want to talk about stormwater master plan.
Well, I think there's a slight difference in that the stormwater master plan covers public infrastructure, not private residences, although they're definitely related. When you're looking at how to make buildings more resilient, one of the biggest shocks that you have to prepare for is flooding and inundation of properties. And when you know you have properties that are at extreme risk and you can't protect them in other ways, having basically a small barrier at the entranceway, it's a very low cost way to do it. And that's something that the city and the building department in particular may be able to look at ways to incentivize, similar to how the BE 305 program evolved, looking at other programs to help building owners put in measures such as the barriers or putting in hurricane-proof windows, things like that, to make buildings more resilient and help out private owners. And I don't know if Jose or Ace would like to talk a little bit more about this, since it does fall within the building department's realm.
Ace, do you want to grab that?
So this is
for Ace. Okay, go ahead, Zeri.
this is I actually like that concept. About a year or two ago, we had a pilot program. We had a provider come out here and do a demonstration program with a removable barrier. What we need to do, which is actually what was the after action report from that pilot program, was to look into providing a standard detail where folks that request to pave over a segment of their swell could be allowed to do so with a requirement and a covenant running with the land that they will maintain a removable barrier for protection of their immediate neighborhood. So that requires additional legislative input. So we're still on that concept, and I thank Mr. Slapp for that great reminder that this thing is long overdue to finalize.
Jose, do you want to add anything before we move on to the next question?
I was just going to add that we are exploring other ways to increase the weatherization of not only single family homes, but also smaller commercial buildings. That gap between the BE 305 program of 20,000 square feet and higher, and actually go below that threshold as well. That was a previous city commission resolution from a few years ago.
All right, thanks. I'm going to package two of these questions from Daniel Alvarez. One of them is in regards to what is the number of staff that are in the focus on resilience and sustainability. He says climate change, but that could mean a lot of things for the city. Then the follow-up question is, does the city have a strategy on creating awareness about the climate change issue? It seems that climate deniers are still a big issue in Miami. So one of them is they're both operational, just in two different capacities. So let's maybe start with the staff question, as I know this is important for budget conversations.
Okay, I guess I can start the conversation. Right now, staffing within the resilience is myself as CRO, Chris Bennett as the deputy CRO, 2 full-time employees, Alissa Farina and Melissa Hugh. And then we have 1 contract employee, Jonathan Klopp, who's here under a grant program. But so he is not a regular FTE that is reflected in the budget, but he has been working with us now for, I believe, 2.5 years or so with the city. As we are evolving in the budget, that grant that is supporting him does expire at the end of this year. However, we are, as part of the BE 305 program, the building department is creating positions that are focused specifically on supporting that program that will kick off in the upcoming year. And so I think when you start looking at where you have resilience positions, what you're seeing now is a migration out of strictly within the resilience division to where now resilience positions are starting to come up in other departments. And that I believe is part of the way forward.
The other question was in relation to communications on building greater awareness for climate change in Miami. I don't know if we have anyone from communications here that, but I don't know, Alan, if that's something you want to talk about, I can talk about.
Well, I think that the strategy has been to create, well, we've created these strategies, the Miami Forever Climate Resilience Strategy. We have been part of the Resilience 305. We've been part of a lot of different alliances or collaborative efforts, and communication has been supporting to get the word out. Of course, like anything, it grows slowly, and a lot of the communication doesn't happen directly from the city, but it goes from word of mouth from one person to another. And that's why this forum is so important, to get more people involved in that conversation, because it is such an important issue for the city. As far as climate deniers or folks who don't believe everything that we say or hear, I think that is a challenge that you always have, but that's why going back to numbers and statistics and having a concrete strategy that you're implementing is so important, because then you can lay out the case for not only why resilience is important, but what you are doing to become the resilient city that everybody believes that we need to become.
Yeah, and I'll just mention that as part of our greenhouse gas reduction plan, hearing comments like that and from others that, you know, the communications is important, that we have, you know, flagged that as something that's important, especially related to like program implementation. So, and for us to work with the communications department, where we have a challenge is, you know, our means are very limited by, you know, we have a big outreach on social media, but for those who are not on the internet, that's where the communication challenge comes from. So if there are people out there who want to partner on, you know, climate literacy events and things like that, I think that's something the city would be open to. But the extent of our reach is very heavily digital. So we can have impact in that space, but perhaps less or so in other spaces. Okay, I am going to call on Mihai next, and then we have Sonia Sucrefere afterwards. All right, Mihai, you should be able to speak now.
Hello, yes. Hello, good afternoon, everybody. My name is Mihai Preda. I'm with Parents for Future Miami, and we want to thank Mr. Alan Dodd for his service. And maybe if I can also address this question of reaching out to the population. And we have been talking about it. We Parents for Future and Fridays for Future, who are also with us on the call here, have been asking the city on this in this forum every month to do what it can, not what it cannot do, but what it is within its power to reach out to the population. For example, we have called every time on the city listing climate change on the homepage of the city's website. And after much insistence, you have agreed to put a field at the bottom of the page. Climate change is the defining issue of our time, and it appears that it takes a lot of work and insistence on the part of activists to get the city to agree to a field at the bottom of the homepage. And this field seems to come and go, and then we had to make again some more noise, and then you put it back in. And then also regarding the other social media accounts, we don't see much about climate change, if anything. Climate change, climate breakdown, climate emergency. We brought this up a couple of months ago, and the mayor gave us assurances that the media department is going to help us broadcast this issue. And well, let's put it this way: we are tweeting at all city officials at least once a month, and with our open letter, you can read there, Parents for Future Miami, right? On Twitter, we can find our take on what the city is doing and not doing on the climate emergency. So these tweets have not even, we have not even received an acknowledgement that you have received these tweets, much less engaging with them and listing the media department and so on in broadcasting the issue. So we don't see that the city is doing anything within its power to bring this issue to the population. Thank you.
Thanks, Neha. Okay, so our next is Sonia. I will call on you now. Go ahead.
Hi, everyone. Can you all hear me?
Yep, go ahead.
Thank you so much for today's call. It's wonderful to see our elected officials, Mayor Suarez and Commissioner Russell. It's really, really nice to see sort of your active participation. I've participated now in a couple of these monthly calls, and I really hope we continue to stay active. I think everything you all shared, and even reflecting on what Caroline and Zelalem said, you know, your hearts are all in the right places. We all have families, we have children. We know these are really heavy and daunting issues. But I just want to make a point that, you know, in light of what we're going through with COVID, especially, I think, you know, we're facing a real crisis against science. And I think Miami can really step up and lead, as it always has. It's sort of been a city, a portal, a beacon of hope for the rest of the state, especially in light of what we're going through. And I hope we can use this opportunity with Alan's departure, which is, you know, very sad to see another chief resilience officer leave, to really now pivot and say, we recognize that we have to come out of this crisis, this COVID crisis, leading again. The state has, we all know the state has really done a terrible job, an awful job in helping us handle climate challenges. And we know Miami will continue to be left behind if we don't push forward. So I hope we reflect on this, you know, unfortunate situation that we're in, to not have a partner, an individual at the city that I know that a lot of companies, organizations, nonprofits need to partner with the city. I'm speaking on behalf of, you know, a international nonprofit, and I will say, we want to know that there's partners that are there to help guide projects through. Sometimes it is really just prioritizing partners in the sense of funding or policies. that's a real need. And that was the whole reason why the Chief Resilience Officer was placed from the Rockefeller Foundation, was to make sure there was a point person to prioritize everything that we're speaking about here. So I think in order to really kind of show that we're taking this issue seriously, that we have partners, global, national, local partners that know that there's an individual that prioritizes all of these issues. I know that Alan also really supported our Back Bay study. That's a huge opportunity, and we will be losing his mind, his brain of how to work well with the Army Corps of Engineers. So I think that's a priority. And then just lastly, I think there's, we're still waiting on a greenhouse gas report that I think the city's been speaking about for some time now. And I think that's something we should be delivering immediately in light of what's happening. So if the mayor or the commissioner can speak about that and where that stands, it'd be great to hear an update on that. Thank you.
Thank you, Sonia. Can anybody shed some light on where we are on the greenhouse gas report?
Mayor, right now, we have done most of the analysis on the new economy portion of the report, and it needs to be released to the public so that they can review it and then schedule public meetings. Once we get feedback on that, and there'd be a 30-day period to let us know what they like, what they don't like. Is it correct? It would then get integrated with the rest of the report dealing with the transportation and building sector piece and all the other parts that were released back in April. But that's where we are right now, is waiting to release the new economy portion so that we can move forward.
Do we have a time frame on that? Just more or less?
We need direction to release it.
Got it. Fair enough.
So I'm for my part, I'm in full support. And as soon as the mayor's ready to release it, I've seen a draft of it. I know it's ready to go pretty much. And I'm sure you've got a draft in your massive pile of things. Mayor, I can't imagine what you have to go through, but it is about ready, and it's ready for public input. And it's not a piece of legislation. It's a good report on where we stand and where we need to go. So I've got your back on that whenever you're ready.
Well, I appreciate it. I like to see it. I haven't seen it, and I will talk offline about it. But as soon as I see it, I can't imagine it would take me too long to review it. I do things pretty fast. That's kind of known for that. So, but yeah, let's talk offline about that, and we'll get it published as quickly as we can.
Fantastic. Can I just make one other suggestion too? So I sit on the Bond Oversight Board Committee. I think it's another incredible opportunity for the city to use those resources, right? These are capital projects in every capacity possible. And we constantly talk about this at our meetings is, even though there's different buckets, affordable housing, roads, parks, each of those buckets can include projects with solar, permeable pavement, bioswales, nature-based solutions. There's a lot that can be done to show projects that, like we were saying, put our money where our mouth is. There's money on the table right now. So I would really encourage you, Mayor and Commissioner, to get, more plugged in on those projects and how we can put together the next list of projects that reflect all of these desires.
I think, first of all, I totally agree with what you just said. I think I love those particular ideas. And I think there's also probably a septic to sewer component that we can do, at some level. And then certainly we think, the county should be a part of it, and we should get some federal funding for that as well. But I think, one of the things that is still mystifying me, and I don't know if we've given you guys a report on, is, when will the funds be available? Because I know that the Miami Forever, we think of the Miami Forever bond in terms of its aggregate amount, right? It's $400 million, but there was a secondary, I don't want to say secondary because it makes it seem like inferior to the original purpose, but it's an important limitation in the bond that it's not allowed to increase taxes. So therefore the capacity to bond may lag. And so I think we at some point need to get a financial analysis so that you guys can see when some of these dollars are available to be bonded. Because I think there, again, there's this perception, which is understandable, that, hey, we have $400 million on the voters voted on $400 million. Yes, they voted on eventually indebting ourselves to the tune of $400 million. But there was a secondary promise, which is we're not allowed to raise the millage rate for that debt. So because it was sold as not a tax increase. And so that means that you can't just borrow the $400 million today and start spending down today. So I want to get some clarity on that for the benefit of transparency for the public. Nzeribe, you want to chime in on that?
Yeah, actually, Mr. Mayor, you're quite correct. We're waiting on finalizing on that aspect. On the Miami Forever Bond program, there is also a memo that was pending release in a couple of days with recommendation from staff on the technical aspect on additional projects that we're recommending to move forward with. I think we finalized that late last week. So we should be releasing additional projects that will target the resilient aspect of the program that we have in place. Alan, do you recall how much total amount that is? I'm trying to open my files.
I think within stormwater program, the stormwater program itself is a $3 to $4 billion program. But what we've done is identified the top 600 million or so priority projects, and of those are making recommendations for which ones we believe are the best use for Miami Forever Bond funding, tied with other grant opportunities. We also are making, and we have remaining about $177 million in Miami Forever Bond funding for sea level rise flood protection projects. In addition, I believe we just sent you a memo with recommendations for the roadway improvements portion, which we have a lot of roads that are in need of reconstruction or repair. So we tried to identify what we believe are the first ones. Of course, this all has to be socialized with the commissioners and other folks to make sure that the staff recommendation matches with the commission priorities as they're looking at their districts. But I think between that and discussions with the park department, we're trying to get down to the recommendations that will go forward to the commission to eventually be approved.
Go ahead, Commissioner.
Thank you. So I've recognized on the dais that there's a frustration from the commissioners as well, that more projects have not been enacted from the Miami Forever Bond. When we first put this on the ballot, the mayor and I were both commissioners. That's how long ago this was, and he's already been a mayor for 4 years. It took a couple years to even get it on the ballot because it wasn't right at first. The voters said yes, then we've had it for years now. I'm almost at the end of my term, and there is only one real project in my district that I can point to and say, look what we did with that Miami Forever Bond. And that frustration is immense, because the worst thing we can do is not use it after fighting so hard to get the money, and not be around when someone else that follows us, we don't know what their priorities or initiatives will be. But this is really the first I've heard that it's a financial limitation that's keeping us from being able to do this. When we first passed it, and by passed it, what I mean when we put it on the ballot, I had a long talk with then Budget Director Chris Rose, who said we were well within our bonding capacity. And if you'll all remember, originally we were talking around a $200 to $300 million bond. And on the dais, Commissioner Hardiman at the time pushed for the additional 100 million for the affordable housing. Now, I stood with him on that vote because I had the assurance of the budget director offline that we had completely within our current millage the bonding capacity for the full amount. So I would love to get an analysis of why that has changed, because my understanding from previous capital improvements director was that the bottleneck was project management capability. So,
And
No,
we-
with all due respect, Mr. Vice Chair, if you recall, the administration had released a series of memos stating very clearly on the record that without the completion of the Stormwater Master Plan, it will be difficult to start rolling out projects that has not taken into consideration the potential impact of sea level rise. The Stormwater Master Plan was completed and delivered to the city, I believe, at the end of March 2021. And staff had synthesized all the recommendations by creating a subset of projects that can fall within the bonding capacity. And I believe that has already been shared with all the electeds. So
yes, but my
wait.
misunderstanding, I agree with you what you're saying there, but do we have a bonding limitation, as the mayor mentioned, that keeps us from being able to bond out the full 400 if we wanted to? Let's say we had the stormwater recommendations and we're ready to go. We have a list of full tranche two to exhaust the entire budget. Could we not do that based on our bonding capacity without raising taxes?
I would like to verify that with the chief.
Yeah, I mean, I would like to verify it too. My understanding is that we have capacity in the sense that, and maybe I have it wrong, I could have it wrong, it's possible, that we have capacity in terms of amount. Like we could have gone from, 300 to 400 and still fit within a financial model that would allow us to borrow that amount of money in the totality. But I think it's limited. I could be wrong, but I think it's limited to not being able to raise the millage rate. So I'm not sure that you can borrow it all at once. I could be wrong, but I thought that it was based on certain funds availability, and maybe that's wrong. Maybe you can borrow it and structure it in such a way that the payments are simply not ever getting over a certain amount. I'm not sure. So I mean, certainly we need clarity on that issue without doubt.
Yeah. Is that a Fernando Casamayor question?
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you.
All right, well, we have plenty of more questions and interest, but we have hit time. So I'm going to just make sure that we have all of this saved. We appreciate everyone who came, and I'll hand it over to Alan and then perhaps our electeds if they have any closing remarks.
I would just like to close by saying thank you to everybody who has been part of this and all the folks who are not part of it. The reason why resilience works is not because of what the city does or the city doesn't do. It's what the city's residents do. And around here, it's very clear that it's a priority for everybody, whether we're talking the mayor and the elected officials, you talk to HOA presidents or community groups. Everybody sees the importance of this forum, this action, and everybody's willing to roll up their sleeves and jump in and help make it happen. So it really has made my job a fun job to do, dealing with complex issues and knowing that we can push the ball down the hill, a little bit every day. So just thanks to everybody. And I would like to thank Mayor Suarez, Commissioner Russell, and definitely hekwaba, my boss and mentor for the last 3 years, for everything that you've done to make this such a great job for me to be working at. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Alan.
Colonel, thank you for your service to the city.
Ditto for me. And, when you came in, there was, maybe some anxiety, right? And I think you're such a classy person, and the way that you handled everything was you didn't get discouraged by it. You're humble, and you're someone who cares, and you're obviously extremely qualified and talented, and you sort of put your head down and just started working, and one by one winning over people who maybe were skeptical at the beginning. And so I think that's a testament to who you are, the kind of person that you are. We're sad to see you go. We have a great team here, and listen, I think it's wonderful that the community, like you said, is really the one that pushes us to do more, and we're going to try to do as much as we can. And I think we when we compare ourselves to other places, I think we compare very favorably, but certainly that shouldn't be necessarily the comparison. We should be focusing on how we can be the best that we can be.
Thank you very much. And with that, I think this concludes our Resilience Action Forum for this month. So thanks everybody for joining.
Thank you.
Thank you.